All right. Whew. So for this problem, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to have to do is we're going to try factoring it, or I'm sorry, try solving it by completing the square. So the main important thing that we want to do by completing the square is, remember, we need to make sure that we have everything in quadratic form. And this example is indeed in quadratic form, or it is a quadratic equation, as sometimes we like to say. So what we're going to do to find the first part is, remember, to complete the square, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a perfect square trinomial, right? Because this is non-factorable as is, right? There's not any numbers that multiply to give you 6, but then add up to give you 3. So it's not factorable in the way that we'd like to use it. So what we need to do is we need to create a perfect square trinomial. So what we're going to do to create a perfect square trinomial, there's a couple different ways to do this. What I always like to do is just kind of put parentheses around our first two terms, all right? And then we'll kind of work on this as the end. So if I'm going to create a perfect square trinomial out of my first two terms, my x squared or my quadratic and my linear term. My constant, I'm just going to move to the other side. So what I'm going to have x squared plus 3x equals 6. All right. So what I'm going to do is, remember when we talked, remember those problems where we worked on the square root method? We took the square root of a perfect square trinomial. So what we need to do here is create a perfect square trinomial. So how do we create a perfect square trinomial out of what we have? Well, to do that, what we're going to do is take b divided by 2 and square it. So your b in this case is 3. So you do 3 divided by 2 squared, which equals 9 over 4. Again, I remind you, do not convert to decimals. So we have x squared plus 3x plus 9 over 4. Now, ladies and gentlemen, since I added 9 over 4 here on the left side, remember you have to add 9/4 on the right side. Right? We'll get to that in a second. So now, what I have is, I have a perfect square, Destin. I have a perfect square trinomial over here. So what is that going to be as a binomial squared? Well, remember, what we can do is take your b divided by 2, and that's going to be your term. So therefore, this is x plus 3/2 squared. Then that equals 6 plus 9/4. All right? I don't want to see fractions. Let's go ahead and see what that's going to work with. So we're going to get a little fraction practice. 6 plus 9/4, you need to multiply to get common denominators. So therefore, that's going to be 24 plus 9 over 4. So you have 33 over 4. All right? OK. So I'm going to take 33 divided by 4. Now the next step is to solve. So on our first 8 problems, we had some pretty easy numbers, right? Well, now we have a fraction. It's OK. Take the square root of both sides. Therefore, you have x plus 3/2 equals the square root of 33, which, or I'm sorry, well, first of all, this is going to be plus or minus the square root of 33. And then the square root of 4 is 2. Yep. We don't know what the square root of 33 is. But the square root of 2, or square root of 4, is going to be 2. Then we subtract 3/2. Therefore, x equals plus or minus, let's do -3. Oh, wait. Sorry. -3 plus or minus square root of 33. This is all over 2. Anybody have any questions on the way I ended solving it or looked at it? OK. Yes? I took my b divided by 2 and plugged it into there. OK? Because think about it. 3/2 times 3/2 gives you 9/4. 3/2 plus 3/2 gives you 3. Yes? Because remember, I took the square root of 33 divided by 2. So the square root of 33 is just the square root of 33. But the square root of 4 is 2. And since they have the same denominators, you could leave it written like this, or you could also write it like this. These are both the same answers. They haven't been really changed. Okay? Yes? Huh? This is more, we'll talk about that a little bit later, how I'm going to expect it. But this is really, for my case, it's, this is a more simplified version with simpler in there. But we'll talk about what you'll need for the class. Yes? Remember, we took a trinomial and a perfect square trinomial and wrote it as a binomial squared. Just like this. Right? You can rewrite this as x plus 3 squared. Right? This is the same one, but it has fractions, so it's a little more difficult. Okay?